Bueno, buenas noches, gracias por estar aquí. Inauguramos hoy la exposición Pathway de NILS-UDO y bueno, es un honor realmente para nosotros tenerte aquí, Nils. NILS-UDO es uno de los artistas pioneros y también fundamental del arte del land art. Comparte protagonismo con otros nombres muy importantes y destacados, británico, por ejemplo, Andy Goldsworthy, o el estadounidense Patrick Dougherty, o el holandés Herman de Vries, que estuvo en la Bienal de Venecia hace poco representando a Holanda, o Richard Long, o Bob Versuren, que estuvo aquí también, y muchos de vosotros recordaréis las instalaciones que tuvimos en el río, en el parque. La obra de NILS-UDO se distingue por intervenir el paisaje utilizando únicamente materiales orgánicos como hojas, ramas, flores, piedras, tierra y agua, con la intención de resaltar la belleza intrínseca de la naturaleza sin dañarla. A diferencia de otros artistas de land art que modifican de forma drástica el terreno, él apuesta por la armonía, el respeto ecológico, creando composiciones delicadas que parecen surgir de manera espontánea en el paisaje. NILS-UDO es multidisciplinar, trabaja en distintas técnicas desde la pintura, escultura, instalación y fotografía. Y aquí hoy en Pascual y Genís presentamos fotografía de gran formato que son el elemento esencial en su trabajo. Esto se debe a que sus intervenciones en la naturaleza son temporales y desaparecen con el tiempo y por cambios incluso climáticos. Por eso la fotografía tiene un papel fundamental, conserva la memoria de esos momentos efímeros y permite que su obra llegue al público. Además, también trabaja la pintura y es otra de sus técnicas. Empezó pintando y ahora en esta época también está pintando, vuelve a la pintura. Y hoy tenemos en la calle Cavillers 5 una de sus obras en el escaparate y que por temas logísticos no hemos podido ir a visitar antes, pero que sepáis que va a estar 3 meses allí y podéis ir a visitarlo. Desde la calle, a cualquier hora, desde las 11 de la noche. El trabajo de NILS-UDO no solo dialoga con el entorno natural, sino que también nos revela nuestra conexión más profunda e íntima con la tierra. La sensibilidad con la que trabaja ha transformado el arte en un auténtico acto de amor hacia la tierra. Hoy aquí podemos admirar sus creaciones en lugares tan diversos como Lanzarote, La Reunión, está de aquí, el desierto de Namibia o en Alemania o Francia. La intención del artista es mostrar la poesía de la naturaleza y su dimensión casi divina. Por esta trayectoria, NILS-UDO ha sido reconocido en Francia con el título de oficial de la Orden de las Artes y las Letras. Y finalmente os voy a leer una pequeña reflexión que hace Nils, que me parece preciosa, que describe su forma de trabajar de una forma muy poética. Y dice así: dibuja con flores, pinta con nubes, escribe con agua, observa el viento de mayo, el rastro de una hoja que cae, trabaja para una tormenta, prevé un glaciar, dobla el viento. Dirige el agua y la luz, el canto exuberante del cuco, el boceto invisible de su vuelo, el espacio, el gemido de un animal, el sabor amargo de Dafne, entierra el estanque y la libélula, ilumina la niebla y el aroma de agrejo amarillo, combina ruidos, colores y olores, la hierba verde, considera un bosque y un prado. Bien, ahora también os quiero presentar, antes de empezar a hablar, Nils, al comisario que ha escrito el texto. Hemos hecho un libro muy bonito en el que recogemos todo el trabajo de Nils, y él es John Cagrande, es escritor experto en artistas del land art que trabajan con la naturaleza, es canadiense, aunque vive en Londres y escribe, y ahora se va a Nueva Zelanda también a escribir, y es itinerante, la verdad, aunque haya nacido en Canadá. John Cagrande es una figura emblemática, como ya os he dicho, en el campo del arte y la ecología. Ha publicado obras fundamentales que han definido el discurso sobre el land art. Como autor ha sido crítico, investigador y profesor de Historia del Arte en la Bishop's University de Quebec. Además ha escrito cientos de ensayos, reseñas y artículos en revistas especializadas internacionales. Como comisario ha organizado numerosas exposiciones de land art en espacios tan variados como los Jardines Botánicos de Canadá, el Pori Art Museum en Finlandia, la edición de Nature Art Spring en verano, Italia, y eventos vinculados con la Pan American Games en Toronto. Y en el 2015 recibió el título de honoris causa, del doctor honoris causa por la Universidad PEX de Hungría. Bien, pues os dejo aquí con John, que va a introduciros un poco más en el arte de NILS-UDO y luego hablará NILS-UDO.
I know nothing. They went that way. Anyway, yeah. I lived all over the world as a kid, you know. So I lived in Ceylon. I would watch the Buddhists and I would see the monuments outside in Kandy and many places. So this was a kind of early land art, these Buddhist frescoes out on mountains and things. So I said to myself, you know, there's got to be something involving the landscape that's not just a painting, you know, when I was young. And over time, I developed this interest, you know. And one of the things I always say is nature is the art we are part of. So in the period of postmodernism, for instance, nature was cut out. The physical world was cut out. And everything was mined, you know. Now we're coming back to some kind of realization that we're living in a living world. And Niels, he makes artworks in an artwork, because nature itself is an artwork that's endlessly changing. So it's kind of leaving a gentle footprint, let's say. And the photographs are the documents. They are the artworks. In the way he presents the works, it is conscious. It's very design-oriented. What I'm saying is, if you're doing a shop window, you put that there and that there. And Niels also is organizing with materials from the places he works all over the world and giving a poetic feeling. Andy Goldsworthy is a great builder also with stone and so on. And him and Niels, I think, are the two best after having worked 30 years in this field, you know, doing earth art shows. And I believe that Spain is a place that is very sensitive to history. And in fact, you have geohistory and biohistory and then human history in many layers. Some are invisible, some are visible. And so when you're working with nature, you're working with a living history. Everything is procreating endlessly. So you look at the work, wood window in the next room, you're looking at elements in nature and colors that will come back again and again and again forever, we hope. Anyway, yeah. And so when I was writing for Artforum in New York and for all the big ones, Sculpture Magazine, I would do the covers, David Nash and everything. David Nash, he said to me, if you live in the country, you like a straight line. If you live in the city, you like a biomorphic line. Because there's too much chaos in nature. Anyway, but if you want to understand our relation to time, working in nature with a reflective sensibility is a way to understand our relation to the living world. And that's what we have to try to rebuild, this relation to the living world and to look after the living world as well. And you look at Turner and Constable, they like to paint outside. Turner was a nomad with his sketchbook. Constable, he would stay in Suffolk, painting all the time. And he influenced Monet and the post-impressionists and so on. They too were in nature, but they saw the arrival of the railroads and the transformation of the landscape. But anyway, the world is changing. And how we see what we live with, one way is to see works like Niels's, which are intimate reflections on time, actually. I think of them as looking into time, some kind of eternal memory, very fragile, like Bob Verskuren before, who showed at this gallery 10 years ago. Ephemeral artists, a movement that will exist but increasingly technology is playing a role, and you have a lot of environmental art that's video and so on, new works, projections, and so on. And so you have now 3 generations. He is the first generation. He's the granddaddy. Yeah. And then the new ones, you know, Joseph Beuys was another kind of environmental artist, social, and from Germany also. But like Krishnamurti, the same thing. You have a strong personality. When they're gone, it's hard to carry any movement. He was the one, also Krishnamurti, you know, who I met in England years ago. And now there are no voices to carry it, you know. Anyway, I thank you very much for inviting me to curate here. And I feel it's a great honor to have this guy here who's a little older than me, still exhibiting. Gracias. Thank you.
Well, I'm an artist working in and with nature around the world in about 40 countries since 1972. Before, I lived for 9 years in Paris, and I was a painter. And I wanted at first to become a very good and great painter, of course. And after 9 years in Paris, I went back to Germany, to Upper Bavaria, and I decided from one day to the other to stop painting and to go and to work in and with nature. And in 1972, I started immediately to rent land from the farmers in my village, and I started to plant trees, bushes, flowers. I no longer wanted to paint trees. I wanted to plant them. I wanted to live with them. I wanted to live with the cycles of nature around the year. I wanted to become a part of nature. And so I started in 1972 in this very little village in Upper Bavaria. And now, just to let you know, I'm not a land artist. The American land artists, they brought metal and concrete in nature. That has nothing to do with my work. I use only nature, nothing else but nature. And when I'm in nature, I have, that's another point, the inspiration gives me to realize or an installation in that nature or to paint a picture in my studio, a painting. So these two works are the 2 sides of the same metal, art in nature and art in my studio. And I'm not sculpture too, because I do not furnish nature with prefabricated objects or artifacts. That had nothing to do with me. I realize installations, and my subject is nature, nothing but nature, and my work of art is nature itself. I just help nature a bit to exhibit what exists. And in this way, I'm working wherever I am without any preconceived idea. When I'm arriving in a new country for me, I react to what I find always. My work is always a reaction to what I see. And that means that, for example, on the island, La Réunion, that's a volcanic island. I went up to the top of a volcano, and I decided to make a piece which works with the theme of fire. And I turned around to the volcano, and I found a track in the lava, and I decided immediately to put into this track red petal flowers called on the island langue de feu, fire tongues. And that was one possibility to work with the idea of fire on that island. Another work is in front of you, my water house in the North Sea. And this piece works with the idea of the tides. The water is coming, it's going back, it's coming, going back. And I have a sequence with 8 big photographs showing the tide coming, and all is covered underwater at the end. And this is just the photo the next morning when the evening when the sun goes down. Well, these are two examples. Here, that one, for example, that was an example I realized in Lanzarote for the foundation Cesar Manrique. They invited me to work on the island, and I realized a number of pieces, and we make a nice exhibition. And there too, in Lanzarote, I worked with the nature, how it exists, and I realized a number of several pieces, and one piece, special pieces, was to work with salt, because they produce salt, white salt, and I made 2 or 3 installations with salt and plants around. That's another example. Another example, when I've been, for example, in Japan, I worked with bamboo. In Venezuela, I worked with how they are called, these plants in the water.
Lilies.
No. They grow in the water with a lot of roots. I have a whole lot. Well, I worked with, what's the name?
Seaweed?
No. That's a root. However, I worked with a plant living in water there. And when I have been, for example, when I've been in Namibia, I realized a quite big installation with a huge sand dune with pampas along the great pampas, hundreds of pampas. Or this one is I realized in Namibia too. In that case, I used ostrich eggs and palm leaves and the lake and the sand of sand dunes. That's my answer to that kind of nature. And I should show you that this, for example, that one behind you, this piece I realized on the island La Réunion in the Indian Ocean again. And I found this little stream, and I just took a little piece of wood and I waited, and the stream, and I collected flowers and put them on the water, and the movement of the water brings all these yellow and these red lines in order. And I took my 3 photographs, and I had my television guys with me. They wanted to make a film. At the end of this installation, suddenly the photographer a cameraman, was a very big guy. He fell into the flowers, just in the middle of the flowers. Yeah, that was the end of this work. Yes, nice. Yes, and so on. Wherever I am, I find new ideas. That nature inspires me always to something new. So I think I could live several lifetimes, because la nature est inexcusable. In English, nature is, how do you say, inexcusable.
Inexhaustible and inexcusable and
how do you say?
Incredible.
No, full of possibilities, rich.
Yeah, infinite.
Yes. Well, however, but nature is my life. Wherever I am, I work in it with nature. Thank you.
Bueno, ya solo me queda deciros, recordaros que paséis por Cabillers 5 si queréis, para ver la pintura, que así completa un poco el trabajo, veréis un poco todo el trabajo que hace Nils. Y luego en la terraza veréis que hay un vídeo, y el vídeo recoge un poco cuando él está en el campo, cuando está montando las piezas, cuando llega con camiones, con grúas para montar sus instalaciones, para que os hagáis una idea un poco de cómo trabaja. Y nada, y como es Navidad, pues ahora van a sacar champán y brindamos todos por la Navidad.